Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Fierce Honest Hearts. I'm Heidi, and with me is Fadista, and coming here on just in the moment, feeling very joyful and loving and silly and giddy with my bestie, and really relishing in the feeling of it, and just like the physical feeling in my body. I'm like, oh my God, this is so much fun. And then also, really feeling, Fadista, the deep gratitude for what we do and for what we model, and how, and we've talked about this before, but I think it's okay to continue to repeat these things that are important. Like I really fully in my heart believe that. And so, when you ask me to pivot, I'm like, yeah, I mean, if it works in my schedule, let's pivot, because I want for you what you want for me, what we want for both of us, which is to be at our optimal. Because if we're coming in feeling a little tired or dragged down or whatever, we're not going to be at our optimal, right? And we want to have the best of ourselves, the most energy that we can when we're producing, when we're recording live for our people, for our audience. So anyway, just that as a little intro, if you will, I guess. I'm not even sure what to call it, but so let's see. Are you done with your thing? Okay, do you want to do a check-in first? Because we typically do. I'm like, anyway, so yeah.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you. Yeah, I love getting to see you and immediately feeling it's both glee, but it's also, I think, glee that comes from a comfort and a trust we've built, right? It's not just like, it doesn't happen with everybody. So just noticing that. And let's see, I'm checking in first, which feels different. Well, I went to Europe for a little spell, and just coming back, there's obviously just the coast of Spain and France and the swimming in lagoons and the vacation time, which is very spacious, right? And I loved it. And I got to be with one of my best friends and her partner. And that was really special. Us three haven't traveled together. So that felt like new relational muscles, right? I've certainly traveled with my best friend. We went to Peru a year ago. So I knew I was in good company, and like it's a new experiment, with another person there and another very important and special person there. So it's just really cool to see how easily we could flow. And my story is we share the values of kindness and flow and adventure. So no matter, sometimes things don't work out when you're traveling, and there was still flow. There was still, okay, that place has got a 2-hour wait. Let's go over here. Let's just keep moving. And I always like to bring a souvenir back that's not necessarily a thing, but is a mindset when I travel. And for me, I always come back to like, I actually need more spaciousness than I give myself in my business, right? And taking it, like really taking some spaciousness, which looks like maybe a longer lunch, maybe a walk after a session, maybe a shower in the middle of the day. Like, who knows? But it's sort of like, how do I put this? It feels like what we talk about when we talk about work-life balance. And it's been a bit enigmatic to me with starting a new business, right? That requires a lot of effort. And I think the only thing that's been missing is giving myself permission to go slower, to not multitask, to put my face in the sun and just enjoy my coffee. Like, I don't want to simplify it, but it's feeling simple to me right now. So that was really joyful. And I think I knew coming back, when you put your laptop away for 10 days, I knew I'd be entering Monday with like a significant re-entry to my own private practice, also to the world, and also to school, like as faculty. What I didn't expect was coming back to some of the heartbreak that's going on in the world, right? And it's always happening. There's no day of the year that there isn't something heartbreaking happening. So I'm aware of that. And I think because I was very in a very like open, receptive, relaxed state, it hit me harder. Because I scrolled through Instagram, and I'm a big fan of trigger warnings, right? Before video, kind of sensitive video is up. And I came across pretty quickly like 3 or 4 pretty violent videos. And I know so many people's hearts are breaking at all that's happening. And I it's hard. How do I put this? It's a weird check-in, but I have to not fall into quicksand given my own history. Right? As a war baby, there is enough in my physical, visceral, cellular memory that I can go down with the ship. Right? It's a reason I do have to shelter from the news. So I lost a few hours, which I'm proud to say, because it used to be I'd lose a few weeks and then a few days. And I certainly lost some ground coming back into my work because I continue to want better for humanity. And it reminds me why I'm teaching relationship coaches to be coaches, and why I'm asking couples to do the hard work of overriding their shitty patterns. And why I'm asking them to be a better legacy for their children. Like, I can see why I do what I do. And there's a younger part of me that gets pretty derailed and needs like a lot of support, a lot of soothing from me, from my partner. So it was a rough landing. Piles of work plus like a little bit of a freeze response and a trauma response, and a few balls dropped and a lot of grace. And then just being honest with people I work with, like, yep, I dropped that ball, no excuse, but I'm trying to kind of climb out of some, pretty big trauma activations. And yeah, I guess that's my check-in. It's the joy of it all and then the heartbreak of it all. And yeah, it's all going to be there. Not wanting one or the other necessarily, just aware that it's hard sometimes, and just more than anything, wishing for an end to us violently working out our differences. I don't know that in my heart of hearts, regardless of whether it's nations or a couple fighting in the kitchen, the thing that's often missing is them listening to each other's valid experiences of how they feel. So I think it can scale, honestly, but I'm not the one in leadership there. I just would like all around just compassionate leadership, continuing to fight for that. Yeah, that's my check-in. I don't want little kids going through what I went through, bottom line. And I think we could fucking do better for them.
Thank you for your very thorough check-in. So I'm going to exercise a muscle that is new for me that I've been working on. I've been processing it, and that is reflecting back. This is a new skill for me that I'm learning in circle. I'm like, gosh, it really is just simply repeating back with anyway, so, and then I'm noticing some real emotion come up for me. So I'm going to do my best. So the first thing is that I'm feeling a lot of happiness for you, that you had time away with one of your closest friends, one of your besties, and her partner, and you're noticing that it could be and was going to be different because there was a third person there, because you've only ever vacationed or gone away with your one friend in any event, and noticing how not only it was good for you, but how easy it was for the three of you because you simply allowed the energy to flow. Like, that's my interpretation of it. And then coming back, right? Coming back to life after being off of social media and the internet and computer and all that kind of stuff, technology, and coming back to it and really, really getting hit hard with realities of life. And also realizing that you really want a better balance of work life and different ways you are learning to do that. And the thing that really hit close to home for me is giving yourself permission. Because I think as humans, especially women, I think women struggle with this more so than men. But I think it's really important that we do give ourselves permission. It's interesting how, and I could go off a tangent, and I won't, but I'm like, yeah, I receive the permission easier when I get it from someone else. It's harder for me to give it to myself. So I'm really getting that. And then, intentionally not watching the news because it is so much, and there is so much. And I don't, anyway. And so I too, am very sensitive to all this. And so I really don't mind. I don't mind learning and finding out hours later or a day later about what's happening, if it's been whatever it is. But if it's something that's really triggering, I'm really grateful that I don't see the pic, because I don't want, like you, I don't watch the news. And so, yeah, and how that affects me. And then, so I get that, wanting just like kind of as gentle of an on-ramp to that as possible. For an HSP, for HSPs, it is, for me, I would say it's a big part of my emotional survival and taking care of my sensitive Care Bear heart, for sure. Yeah. How'd I do?
Oh, so well. Thank you, friend. Yeah, I feel really seen in your reflection, and it's helping me notice, like, oh, of course I was living in some utopia for 8 or 9 days where values aligned and where everything was sort of magical and beautiful and utopian, right? And then I did feel hit pretty hard by just the complete opposite of that is also in our world.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just appreciate being like, oh yeah, no, that actually was an assault for me. And if I could just invite people to have trigger warnings, because you don't know if the person watching has been in a war zone,
Yeah.
has had that trauma, and we all want to be informed, and like all of that makes so much sense, but it's the same as any other crime.
Yes.
You want to let people know the context of what might be coming at them.
Yeah.
That would be my only request, because if I saw that, like trigger warning, war crimes, I don't know that I would have gone past that for my own well-being.
Yeah.
Right. And I also get everyone's like sympathy and wanting to share and wanting to be vocal, and like it's all so beautiful and well-intentioned. But to just have violence on the screen without any context is not relational.
Yeah.
And yeah, that just is like, you don't want to knock people out, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah. Thanks, friend. I appreciate your sweet, like, vulnerability of practicing reflecting back, and you do it so well. And I just want to name like how cool it is to see you like say, hey, I'm going to try this. You know,
Thanks.
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. There was something that I wanted to add to what you shared, which was, first of all, I have been learning to become much more sensitive about trigger warnings because of you, because of what you've shared in your example of it. And I'm like, of course, like that makes complete sense. And then to be the one who's not warned, and I'm like, oh my God. And I have to say, I have been so, I guess the word is shocked and kind of like, why are you posting this? And I'm talking about very vivid videos and photos of what's happening in Israel. And I'm like, so I have enough of an imagination where I can picture my own war. Like you know what I mean? Like I have enough of it. I don't actually need to see it. And so, and to just simply post something without any kind of, hey, this might be whatever. So I'm yeah, really feeling into that and appreciating what I've learned from you about it. And that's all I really need to say about that. So I'm going to start my check-in because we're 22 minutes in.
No, I love it. I want you to have your check-in too. And I appreciate that, because again, I come back to like, people are well-intentioned. They don't want us turning away from the reality of what's happening. I'm not talking about putting our heads in the sand, but there is a level of, before I show you something that could be terrorizing to you, let me give you choice so you can consent.
Yeah.
It's really about consent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And I would love to have a check-in and an opportunity to do some reflection back.
All right. Okay. So I will say right now in this moment, I'm doing well. And I'm also throughout the day, I've been really struggling with anxiety, like a pretty intense level of anxiety. And I'm like, okay, what is going on here? Like, I really, not that I have to figure it out, but I want to at least understand for myself so I can maybe regulate a little bit better. And I was like, well, this is going on in the world. We have all this other stuff going on in the world. I've shared with you about the apartment building, like what's happening in the apartment building. And also, this is the time of year that's probably seasonally wise is the hardest for me. When the days are getting shorter and it's, getting colder and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, and also because of the way that my apartment is situated, the light is very different than where it was before. So I'm like, oh, that is happening. So anyway, just kind of noticing all that. And then I was like, okay, if it gets bad, what can I do for myself? So there's a remedy, a homeopathic remedy. I have a whole homeopathic kit, but anyway, I have a remedy that I take that is actually a remedy that I use for a lot of different things. It kind of resolves many things for me. And the one thing is anxiety. And I'm like, okay, I am feeling like I've noticed that it's come down. It's not like it was probably like on a scale of 0 to 10 easily. It was at least a 10 or an 11 earlier today. And now it's probably down to a 5. And I no longer have that kind of internal shaking and that kind of thing. I'm like, I'm okay. Like I'm okay, you know. So anyway, and I'm sharing this because I know that I'm not alone in it. Like I know that I'm not the only one in the world, and I know that other people struggle this time of year. Like fall's just a challenging time for some people seasonally. And as much as I appreciate the beauty of the fall, like the color changes and the crispness of the air and breathing it in and how it feels in my nostrils, I love that. Like I just love it. And at the same time, like there's a duality. I also struggle. So what else is going on in my world? Let's see. I am gearing up and finding the courage, and it's going to happen, but I know that I'm going to have a challenging conversation tomorrow. And I'm, you know, Fidesta, as I shared with you the other day, I really believe that this relationship, this friendship that I have, we were like, I'm meant to be in her life and she's meant to be in my life. Because there is so much that I learned from her and that she learns from me. And it's very, you know, and we still have some struggles. So anyway, and knowing that it's going to be okay. Like that's the other thing I need to remember. I'm like, this is not going to fall apart. We have a really strong foundation, and this is a pattern. And so I want to support my friend to figure this out. So anyway, I think that's my check-in. Yeah, I think I've checked in for now. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Okay. So I felt really touched by just your ability to hold both the joy of autumn and then maybe the grief of autumn, equal parts. So I didn't realize for you when you named anxiety that like it could be at a 10 or 11 and have you really shaky. It has my care online and has me more curious about your experience at that number, right? Versus like low grade anxiety, that kind of stuff. And it sounds like you're having your back with remedies and self talk and just an approach that's aware, like, oh, my environment's different, my lighting's different, the seasons, this is that clunky transition, for many. And it sounds like you know that about yourself, which is so important. And I relate to like grieving summer. And oh, hold on, we got a siren. Can you hear that? No, okay. Wanting like summer everlasting on some level, and then understanding that nature's cyclical and where we live is cyclical, right? And the waning light is significant. It's a significant note, like change. Sorry, I'm distracted by that. So it's really neat to know that about you. I don't know that that's something I was tracking, as your friend. And I think as like a kindred spirit who's like, yeah, the autumn leaves are beautiful and crisp air is wonderful and things are going colder and darker. Right. And then there was another piece I heard for you in that. There was like the shaky anxiety, the remedies, autumn. I think HSPs struggle more with transitions than the average bear. Like we sense the nuance of the transitions more. And I wonder if that's a factor, right? Like your lived awareness is more keen with my story. And then braving a conversation with someone that you have built a friendship and a foundation with. So I also hear you not psyching yourself out. I hear the mental discipline of not going into catastrophizing and the faith of yes, this is going to be edgy and we're going to figure it out. And that's a really cool, it's cool to hear that internal dialogue out loud that you're giving yourself. That makes sense. Yeah. And my favorite part of the theme I hear in all of that is how you are having your back,
Mhm.
right? In your self talk,
Mhm.
the apartment, the autumn, with this friend, this conversation. I don't hear you making it harder for yourself. That makes sense.
It makes sense, and you're right, I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Did I get some of
Yeah.
that?
You got all of it. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I wanted to, I wanted to share a little bit more about my anxiety scale.
Yeah.
So I have this, and this is my stuff, and I'm okay with that, but I have a really ridiculously high level of tolerance
Mm.
that can, and what happens with that, it can distort my reality. So hang with me here, and I'll
Okay.
share a little bit more. So um, I think I would guess that, so typically I don't know that I would necessarily say my anxiety is at a 10. I would be, even though I have this internal, oh my God, what am I, like all this stuff going on internally, I would tell myself, because of my high tolerance, that I might be at a 5.
So
Might be
the self-reporting is off
yes,
or skewed.
completely skewed because of my high tolerance.
Mhm.
And so as I was doing my internal work today, and doing my best to self-regulate, I kept asking myself, what is my reality? On my scale, where am I? Where am I on my scale? Am I really at a 5? Because if I was at a 5, that means I'm closer to a 1 than a 10. And I don't feel close to a 1. So I had to have this inner conversation, this self-talk. And I was like, wow, okay, I know that this morning I was at a 10. Like it was so clear. I'm like, and there's also a part of me that doesn't want to believe that I could be at a 10 either. Right?
Mhm.
And whatever that falsehooded, whatever that self-lie is, if I want to call it that, um, because I think as a, I kind of I go in between being a realist and an optimist and doing my best to marry the two. And they're hard to marry sometimes, right? Like they're really hard. And I was like, okay, it's just, let's get rid of I don't need to be an optimist. I need to be real with myself.
Mhm.
Of course, I don't want to be a 10, but I'm not a 0. I'm not a 5. So let's be real about this and know that I can get to a 5. I know that I can get there. Like that's awesome. I'm like, I don't want to stay here. I don't want to stay at my 10. So what can I do for myself
Mhm.
to get to a lower number? And I would say over the, I would say 4 or 5 hours, I could literally feel the level of anxiety dropping. And I was like, wow, that's kind of amazing. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I
Yeah.
relate from having like a high pain threshold and sometimes not making the best decisions, thinking like, oh, that's okay, but being like, oh no, that's really not good.
Yeah.
And it sounds like when you can convince your optimists this isn't the place for them to be serving, um, and allow like the reality to sink in, right? Even just within yourself. That's an emotional congruency.
Hmm.
Like actually, I know I'm walking around pretending I'm a 5. No one else is watching, right? But you're watching. Your witness is watching. And I'm definitely not a 5. So now what? That seems like a seed of empowerment.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but it certainly feels that way. Yes.
Yeah, because if you're like, I'm a 5, no prob, you're going to behave differently.
Uh-huh.
Then I think I'm really a 10. Like, we need to take this seriously and support, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wonder how many people, because I see this in couples coaching a lot, the self-reporting is not accurate.
Yes.
People
Yeah.
are like, we're okay. And it's like, y'all don't look okay over
Right.
here. Um, and how my story is, when we're honest with ourselves, we're also trustworthy to others.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember early in my relationship, you know, maybe having PMS or having cramps or being miserable in maybe something like this, like ending up, a week that has war very forward in the news cycle, and pretending to be like a 3, right? Because I wanted to be the good girlfriend. I wanted to be chipper. I didn't want to be problematic. However, I have a very sensitive tracker of a man who's like, she feels like a 7 to me, but she's telling me she's a 3. Like, how trustworthy is that?
Yeah.
Right? It's incongruency. And it took a long time even for me to admit, like, no, actually, I'm at a 7. And then to be able to say to someone, just want you to know I'm at a 7, you know. But that's how trust is built between ourselves and others. So yeah, I just commend you for, like, I don't know, not trying to put sprinkles on it, you know, not bypassing.
Yeah.
It's really the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Because I think I just momentarily, I almost said, yeah, that's easy for people, but it's not. Like when I really look inward and I'm like, no, Heidi, that's not actually easy. That's really hard
Mhm.
because it's, and what I mean by that is like, is it easier to lie to myself, or is it more challenging? No, it's actually harder to when I lie, because when I lie, then I have to undo
Mhm.
and figure out more. And I'm like, no, if you just pay attention to what's going on within,
Mhm.
you're gonna get to where you need to get.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And then, like you said, to be congruent with actually what is going on, and then verbally saying it out loud, or at least if and I do talk to myself all the time, but right.
Yeah.
So to say it out loud to myself, like, okay, I'm not okay, or I am in pain and this pain hurts so much, or whatever the situation is.
Mhm.
It's okay,
Yeah.
because telling ourselves something different isn't going to change the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. And I agree. Maybe it's not easier, but I think it's less vulnerable for people.
Oh,
I know in my own experience, it was
yes.
like, well, if I faux 3 it, I don't have to be vulnerable about the 7 I'm at.
Right.
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 But it kind of blows up in your face when someone can read your energy. And most of us are pretty instinctual. We're tracking energy. And even today, I ended up in a class, our couples coaching training. And, the question was like, how are you landing? How are you doing? And it was like, I could say, great. I could, right? It would be easier. But instead, I was like, well, if I don't do it here, at the relationship school,
Right.
what are we even doing? And so for me, it was like, I'm grieving / grateful to be here, because to be in community is really soothing. Um, but I didn't skip the grieving part. You know what I mean? 'Cause I think at some point somebody might be able to read that I'm not I'm not in my normal zone,
Yeah.
potentially. I just want to be honest. And it's been a work in progress. I think that's the piece I want to lift up, is it didn't always feel comfortable to be that transparent. Right. And I might not say that at the post office.
No.
also.
Right.
Right. But
Yeah.
I might actually,
Yeah.
like, oh, it's a rough day or whatever.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing you speak to is that you're not even trying to fool yourself or persuade yourself out of your feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because that's more work.
I'd say.
It's so much more work. And I'm like, I'm I'm enough work for myself. I don't need to add to it. I don't need to add to that pile.
Right.
It's so much easier for me to be like, okay, I am where I am right now. And it's not, and the other thing too, and we've talked about this on the podcast in the past, but literally nothing lasts forever, especially a feeling, especially something we're going through. It will shift, even if it's slightly, it will shift. And that's the beauty of life. Like that's just, we are moving and changing all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can count on that impermanence, right?
100% yes. Yeah.
I have a question for you, a follow-up question.
Sure.
So like when you think about what it's like to posture over how you feel, right? With others or whatever, like whatever that faux posturing is, versus just letting people in.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, and maybe you don't have this going on because I could be projecting, but how do you work with the part of you that might be shaming you or having a fantasy of how you should show up? Like, does that happen for you at all?
So that I'm clear about your question, what I hear you asking me is, if I posture, do I feel shame in the posturing?
And when you don't, do you have to work with any shame?
Oh, no. So that's a clear no.
Okay.
If I'm vulnerable and honest, no. I have, for this, it's so interesting. I really feel, I want to say, I'm not 100%, but I feel really comfortable in my vulnerability because it's my truth. And I don't feel comfortable when I'm not being true. So for me, there would be more shame if I'm like lying, because it's not, if I'm, especially, I would even say when I've lied to myself, like that's the most shameful thing for sure. That feels really shameful, and it feels wrong, and it feels completely out of my value system. I'm like, what are you? And that's when I go, what are you doing, Heidi? And that question has it's laden with a lot of shame. What are you doing? And when I ask myself, I'm like, what? I don't even need to ask myself because I know what I'm doing. And it's like, you're full of shit right now. Like, just say what or you don't have to respond at all. I mean, I could say, I don't really want to respond to that right now. That would be more truthful than saying, oh, I'm great, or I'm fine. Right. But for me to say, I don't really want to respond to that right now. And I have done that. And the other thing that I have, the other response I've asked or gone with, used, is when somebody asks me how I'm doing, and let's say I'm not doing great. And so, and so I'll just check in. I'll just say, do you really want to know the truth? Because what I've learned is most people don't want to know the truth. The truth is really hard for some people, especially when the person is not doing well. Especially. Yeah. So I'm curious. Same question for you about that. Yeah.
I feel like when I am posturing over something, it's because of the shame, the story, the lack, the um, just unresolved shame in me can have me posture, right? It's a I shouldn't feel this way kind of shame. It's
Mm,
a like fighting against reality at the end of the day. Once I'm a little more sober, I'm like, wow, why was I fighting myself so hard? And it's often shame. And then, in order for me to be vulnerable and really share what's going on, I have to have worked through that shame. Not all of it, but some of it, right? Because for me, that's, I think, why I asked you the question is like, I don't posture for fun,
no, no.
right? I posture to protect some shame. And the real antidote is to name the shame. I have this fantasy I should be doing better than I am right now. Or I'm feeling shame because I think I should be over here, but I'm over here. Like that helps open up some vulnerability for me because I think I have really high standards of myself. And when I fall short of them, there's shame. But what's most healing is just being like, man, I'm being really hard on myself. Or it really helps when a friend's like, it seems like you're being really hard on yourself right now. Like, I wouldn't expect anyone to be, you know,
Yeah,
not upset or whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, so I do have to work with the shame piece because
Uh-huh.
either it'll have me puff up to look like I'm doing better than I am, or it has to be included in what I share. Like the vulnerability has to be, this is really hard for me because I just have a fantasy I should be doing better and I'm not. And, here I am, messy human, you
Uh-huh.
know, like even with returning, right? It's like the fantasy, people are like, she's gonna be so happy and refreshed and she went on this magical journey and all of that's true. But then I also felt like I got hit in the face with such tough reality.
Yeah,
So it's like what's helping me is to be that nuanced human that's like, yeah, oh my God, that was so magical. That was a trip of a lifetime. And I'm so grateful I did that. And I entered into this reality with a trauma response that knocked me off my feet. And that's okay. Like I have my back, you
yeah,
know? One doesn't take away from the other. It's just like they both are existing. And that's wildly weird to be a human sometimes.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, so holding, I almost said holding both,
Hmm.
but you're holding more than both because there are a lot of layers to the both.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and again, coming back to what we talked about in our check-in, which was giving ourselves, allowing ourselves, giving ourselves permission
Hmm.
to to be honest with ourselves and to allow ourselves to feel all of it. Because, like you said, I'm human. We're human, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to be like, I think when I was younger, I thought it was very black and white, right? And it's like, well, I got to take a walk with a friend and geek out on music production, and I was truly joyful in
Mhm.
that conversation about, you know, really fun ways to mic a cello. I don't know,
Mhm.
right? And I'm really distraught, and I'm really grateful,
Yeah.
and right. So maybe that's a sign of maturation. I hope so. To be like, well, no, I'm not all trauma response all day, all night.
Right.
And I'm also not all magic and unicorns either.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we can change minute by minute.
Right. Right.
And that's a good thing.
It is a good thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Being human is pretty extraordinary. It really is.
I marvel at
Yeah.
it
I do too.
every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also just to our audience, like whatever basket of stuff you're holding. Don't feel crazy if one moment you can feel joy and gratitude, and the next moment you feel shut down and numb. Like, it's all part of the journey, and there's nothing wrong with you.
Not one thing wrong, right? Yeah.
Mm.
Oh my God. Who knew? Again, always amazed by where we go in our conversation, in our journeys of conversations. Yeah.
Hey, I think, in that the foundation we've built in our friendship, that we can go anywhere.
Yeah.
And that all of it's welcome. I want that kind of friendship for others.
Oh, you too.
Where, like, I didn't even know what was going to come up, and I also trusted it was us.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That's what makes it easy and flowy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you, friend.
Thank you, friend.
Mm.
We want to do let's get
Yes, let's do it.
All righty. All right. All right. So what finger? I guess I'll use this finger.
Okay. Stop.
This one?
Before that
one? Okay. All right. So controversial. Oh my God. Okay.
Uh-oh.
If you knew a friend was being cheated on, what would you do?
Tell him. Hands down. I've been in that position a couple times. And I know
being the one being cheated on, or being fine. No. Oh, okay. Okay.
Being cheated on, and or when it's two friends, one cheating on the other. Like, yeah, I have zero tolerance for playing along in those instances. And I don't know. I think I want the truth more than I want to keep people together. I want the truth.
Yeah.
That's a high value for me.
So I'm curious, can I ask a follow-up question?
Mm-hmm.
Has it ever backfired, the truth on you?
I mean, I've certainly had friends be like, I can't believe you told them, or blah, blah, blah. And it's like, tough shit.
No, from the person that you told.
I think there's probably backfire in the sense of like some estrangement if they decided to stay, right? Or just the mess of it. But I've never personally felt like it backfired, because I felt in integrity.
Yeah.
But it could have backfired in the external sense.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
How about you? If you knew a friend was being cheated on, what would you do?
I would tell them. Yeah. I would tell them. And it's happened, and it did backfire. That's why I asked. It did backfire, and that person and I are no longer friends. They were pissed that I told them.
They'd rather have not known? Is that the deal?
They would rather have not known, although they already knew. Because most people already know.
Yeah.
Like they may not know the whole story, but they know that there's something up, something weird going on. Let me put it that way. Yeah. And I was like, you know what? I felt very like, very much in integrity. And I'm like, I know that I would want to know, as badly as it would hurt. Yeah. I would rather know than people be like, no, we didn't want to hurt you. Fuck that.
I'd rather know and get on with my life.
Me too.
Yeah.
I would much rather know. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a long time, but I'm just thinking back to those incidents and thinking, I just felt so strongly. I had such conviction that, like, this is not something I can sit on.
Right.
There's too much bandwidth.
Yeah. And sorry.
No, that's all. Just like, it's too much labor.
It was a lot of labor. And I also felt that I felt that our friendship was in jeopardy if I didn't say something, because I knew something. And talk about posing. I was like, I was lying out and I'm like, no more. You're just going to tell them. And that went on for maybe 3 or 4 days. But I was like, I can't live like this. It's too hard. It's too painful. And I would rather just rip off the Band-Aid and let them know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Ooh.
Yeah. Glad to know we're on the same page. Not that I thought we would be different pages, but I'm like, yeah, this feels like the right thing.
I mean, I've heard people are like, oh, it's none of my business. And it's like, but is that true when it's your friend? It's none of your business.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like it's someone's heart is on the line. I take that very seriously.
I do too. I do too.
Mm.
Yeah. Thanks, friend.
Thanks, friend.
For another great conversation. And thank you to our audience. If you feel led to, hit subscribe, share a like, share our podcast for someone or someones that you feel might benefit from it. And we will see you next time. Bye, everyone.